As you know, this is an active investigation. I'm not at liberty to disclose.
Fuck all that noise. My motherfucking brother is killed, all right? And whoever took him from me is gonna fucking pay. Bottom line.
Now, will we see any surprise characters returning in the final episode of Power Book 2 Ghost? That's the topic of discussion in today's breakdown, because from history, across the previous 3 seasons, we have seen a fair few characters dip in and out the world of Ghost, specifically in the final episode. Back in Season 1, we had Tommy's return. In Season 2, we saw Tasha for the first time since she'd been whisked away to witness protection. At the end of Season 3, there was 2-Bit, Tommy, and also Tasha again. We've also seen a fair few hallucinations where we've seen the return of characters from beyond their grave. Gianni, who also plays Braden, did mention there is a surprise in episode 10, which is a really broad vague kind of statement. A surprise in the world of power can literally mean anything. It could be a surprise death, it could be a surprise moment, a character return, it could literally mean anything. So, will we see any surprises in terms of character returns in Power Book 2 Ghost Season 4, Episode 10? Now, the last time we saw Rashaad Tate in Ghost was back in 407. What brought him back was the death of his brother Kamal Tate, who he had a really good relationship with. They're brothers off screen and also played brothers on screen. So, when we kind of got an inkling that Kamal Tate was on borrowed time, we all knew this was going to serve as a plot device to potentially bring Rashaad Tate back into the picture. Now, when we did see him return, of course, he was devastated, and he let Carter know that he needs to get down to the bottom of whoever took his brother from him.
And whoever took him from me is gonna fucking pay. Bottom line. And you know I was New York's finest. I was the cop just like I either talk to you or the press. But I'm gonna get the answers I need.
Carter knew that Rashaad Tate wasn't messing around. There was no way he was going to get away with this murder, and I think Carter knew you can't be messing around with someone who has the power and influence of someone like Rashaad Tate. Let's not forget, he was also facing questions from Nico Halston. So, in the end, Carter threw the blame on the Russians. However, there is still a certain plot and storyline that could bring Rashaad Tate back into the picture.
Carter has something on you, then you need to get something on him.
In episode 10, Davis McLean will tell Tariq he needs to find leverage over Carter, and at this moment in time, the only leverage that we can possibly think of is him killing Kamal Tate. So, if he's able to find this information, could he potentially go to Rashaad Tate for help in dealing with Detective Carter, serving the man who murdered his brother on a silver platter for Rashaad to deal with as he sees fit? Think about it, Rashaad Tate bringing down the dirtiest cop in the NYPD, along with his dirty task force, and potentially more mid-level drug dealers across New York. Imagine what that would do for Rashaad Tate's image as a politician. Or maybe he decides to pull the trigger himself, because he did tease he wanted to be the man to end the person who got rid of his brother. So that's how we could see Rashaad Tate return.
You look way too young to be somebody's parent. Who are you here for?
My little cousin Tariq.
St. Patrick?
Yeah, you know?
Oh, we're all quite acquainted with Tariq.
Now what about 2-Bit? The last time we saw 2-Bit was way back in 402. Tariq was sick and tired of being broke, driving a beat-down car which broke down in the middle of the highway. He was in a position where he couldn't even afford an Uber, not sure how. But this is where he came up with a plan with Braden to take back his Porsche with his spare key. Soon after, he then got rid of the car to one of Pinky's connects. So, what storyline could potentially bring 2-Bit back into the picture? I'm not actually too sure he will return. I think there's so much going on in terms of Monet's death, Tariq having to deal with Detective Carter, potentially saving Anya Covington. I just don't know where they have time to kind of fit 2-Bit into the storyline, unless the episode is kind of 1.5 hours or 2 hours, which is highly unlikely. Over on Instagram, Michael J. Ferguson, who plays 2-Bit, did actually post a poster of Power Book 2 Ghost with a caption, Grand Finale, September the 6th, don't miss it. But he also did something very similar in Season 2, where he was nowhere to be seen. Some of these actors also teased him to pop up also in Force, but again, that was pretty much shut down straight away. So, I do find it kind of hard to think of how they'd be able to bring 2-Bit back into the storyline with so much going on in the final episode. If he does, then great, but with this one, I'm probably leaning towards him not returning. Now with Tasha St Patrick, the last time we saw Tasha was in 407. That was after the death of Tariq and Diana's unborn baby. Tariq really needed his mother, and with Tasha, she has popped up in each of the 3 previous season finales. In Season 1, she was released from prison. In Season 2, we saw her right at the very end when she was reunited with Yasmin. And Season 3, We saw her in episode 9 and 10 when Tommy returned. So, will it be 4 out of 4 for Tasha? What storyline could bring her back into the picture? Well, we all know when Tariq is in trouble, Tasha will always be there for him, no questions asked. And at some point in episode 10, maybe he does get stuck. Maybe he does reach out to Tasha, or maybe she comes back to New York on her own accord to help Tariq. As I've said before, we have seen Tasha in each of the last 3 seasons' final episode. However, if she does come back, does she run the risk of being caught in the crossfire in this war that we're about to see? I do think a few characters do have a lot of plot armor, but with Monet's death in 409, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we did see Tasha go. We've all been saying that's what Tariq needs to really tap into this dark side. So, could it finally happen? Will Tasha return in episode 10? And if she does, could she find herself in danger?
If you want to survive, you either a civilian or a gangster. There ain't no in between. Stay in your lane, all in or all out. If you get distracted, you did.
Now, the last time we saw Tommy was of course way back on 4 Season 2. In terms of Power Book 2 Ghost, we saw him return in 309 and also in 310. He came back to get revenge on Tasha after Diana leaked her location to Kate Egan. However, during this meet, we did see them put their issues to one side. They said that they'll always be family, and they'll always be there for each other. But what storyline could bring Tommy back into the picture? Following on from Tasha's chapter, I do think if Tommy found out Tasha had been taken off the chessboard, that is something that would definitely bring him back to New York. But do they have time in what I can only assume is only a 1-hour episode? I personally don't think so. I think if we were going to see another crossover, it's going to be Tariq potentially being on the run, or we see Tariq pop up at the end of Force, rather than Tommy popping up at the end of Ghost Season 4. But funnier things have happened in the world of Power, and I guess with Tommy Egan, you can never say never. In my own personal opinion, I can't see it. This one falls into the same category as 2-Bit. I think there's just way too much happening at this moment in time for Tommy to return, but let's wait and see.
They're gonna close the case, but I know they're wrong. He was investigating Tariq St Patrick and other dealers. They killed him.
Now, Paz Valdez. This is definitely a bit of a strange one. The last time we saw Paz was way back in 401. She warned Junior to stay away from Tariq St Patrick, and she definitely had a good reason in doing so. They'd already lost so much after the death of her sister, Angela Valdez, and when she lost Junior, she turned to Detective Carter to try and find the man responsible. However, since then, the investigation into Junior's death has kind of magically disappeared. There has been no word on Junior for a very long time, and the focus has rather shifted to Detective Carter and his dirty task force, which is kind of strange. Back in Power, Paz Valdez was on her way to Club Truth to get rid of Ghost for what she thought he did to Angela. So, you'd have to ask the question, why wouldn't she be doing the same for her own son? Again, do they have time to get around to this particular plot in episode 10? Could she come back around and ask questions in regards to why haven't they found Junior's killer? Or, better yet, could she take matters into her own hands, just like she was willing to do way back in Power? Paz Valdez is definitely one to keep in the back of our minds, but I also wouldn't be surprised if we don't see her either, and this is kind of just swept under the rug. Lauren Baldwin. The last time we saw Lauren was when she was leaving New York with her parents, after she refused to testify for Jenny Sullivan. Could we see Lauren return? Again, this one's probably highly unlikely. I don't see any kind of hints or storylines, or even how she'd benefit the story in terms of returning in episode 10. If there was a season 5, then maybe you could make a case where she could actually return back into Tariq's life. But I don't think we'll see Lauren, at least not in episode 10, maybe in another Power spin-off, who knows.
Jenny abandoned ship to go chase mob guys.
Now, what about law enforcement? Before season 4 began, many actually thought Jenny Sullivan was gonna gun for Davis McLean, which she actually still did. She went for his law license. But we all heard what Blanca Rodriguez said. She's gone to chase mob bosses, which would have actually tied very nicely in with my breakdown last week in regards to the Italian mafia. Could Jenny Sullivan cross over into whatever spin-off they have next after Power Book 2 Ghost? You would have to assume there would have to be some sort of law enforcement, and all three of Jenny Sullivan, Blanca Rodriguez, and also Tamika Washington are all characters who can still play a part in the wider Power universe in the future. Whether we see any of these three returning in episode 10, I did raise the perspective of how it would be nice to see some of these characters end up in jail rather than ending up dead. So, could we see Blanca Rodriguez come back, or even Tamika Washington to slap the handcuffs on some of these characters? Perhaps Detective Carter and Nico Halston. I guess it is a possibility, but again, I'd put that category of maybe this one being highly unlikely. Now, what about characters from Beyond Their Grave? We've seen Tariq having a few hallucinations during Power Book 2 Ghost. He's seen Kanan a few times, and a lot of these characters who he had a hand in killing either himself or played some sort of role. So, as we're approaching the end of Ghost Season 4, could Tariq have another hallucination of Kanan where he tells him to man up and stop being punked around? Could he finally have this hallucination of Ghost? Something I think they had the opportunity to do in episode 5. I think if they were going to bring Amari Hardwick back, then it probably would have been in episode 405. So I'm not too sure whether Ghost would pop up in a hallucination in episode 10. But with the theme of this video being potential return of characters, Tariq having a small hallucination or a dream sequence could actually happen. So again, I would say let's keep this one in mind. Will Tariq see anybody from his past from beyond their grave? But that's a breakdown of some of the characters that we may or may not see in the final episode of Power Book 2 Ghost. And if I have missed any, if you guys have come up with someone else from the world of Power, let me know in the comment section, and drop all your thoughts and predictions down below. Will any of these characters return? But as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.